Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar on video security and Vigilant. I'm Ricky Pishoff, and I'm the National Technical Training Manager at SnapAV and OL8, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. Before we get started, let's go through a few quick housekeeping tips. First, we will be recording the presentation, and we will send you a copy of a link to it by email within a few days. That email will also include a coupon code for the offer that was mentioned in the invite. So look for that within 5 to 6 days after the webinar is over with. And lastly, we are planning to have time at the end of the presentation for a Q&A session. So please feel free to send in your questions at any time during the webinar. You can do that using the question and answer feature in the webinar control panel. Okay, now I'd like to introduce today's presenters, Alex Petreo, and he will also do an introduction for our co-presenter today. So I'll turn this over to Alex and we'll go ahead and get started. Alex?
Thanks, Ricky. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm happy to talk about Vigilant with our co-founder, with our founder of Vigilant, Adrian Johnson. Adrian Johnson founded Vigilant a few years back and really came with some innovative products and way to drive additional security into the market. And last year we acquired Vigilant because we saw some really great potential in that, and we see the future of surveillance going in that direction. Today, for our agenda, we plan on talking about Vigilant and how it compares to other surveillance systems, because it really is cut above in terms of other surveillance systems out there and really is not comparable to anything else that's out there. And specifically where it is unique is around how it integrates with control systems and security systems, so we'll be going through that. And then based on that sort of unique capability, how that allows us to achieve greater levels of security. And then we'll also talk about some of the other technologies that are incorporated into Vigilant to help make all that possible. So moving us forward, what we believe security, the direction where we see security going is we have a lot of traditional security systems out there, your typical sort of burglar alarm. And a lot of those systems are matched with surveillance systems and cameras around the property to kind of enhance that system. And we believe that because you have all these cameras around, that if you can treat that video more intelligently, we can create something that's more than just a traditional security system. So let's talk a little bit about that. With this system, not only can we use that intelligence to improve the security, but we also can use that intelligence to make the smart home smarter. Adrian, why don't you take us through some of the kind of use case examples on how to do that?
Thanks, Alex. So with Vigilant, what we've developed is a range of drivers. So if you can automate it on the control system, we can trigger that automation from the camera. So when the camera detects somebody, you can initiate a lighting scene. You can send yourself a notification, or send the end user a notification when a package, when mail is delivered to the front door. And what we've also done with that automation is allowed you to create privacy areas for the homeowners. So the cameras, when the homeowner is present, can automatically turn off that camera stream, and that's not disabling or removing the power, which is typically in the industry today. What we have noticed is a significant increase in the number of internal cameras that we're selling since introducing that feature. We'll talk later about more about the integration with the automation and the security systems, but one quick example for you with the privacy feature is we can turn the cameras off when the homeowner enters their code into the security system, but if the cleaner arrives and the cleaner enters their code, we can turn notifications off, but we'll leave the camera streams on. So you've still got the security of recording the property while the cleaner is there, but you've then got the increased privacy. So when the homeowner is there, you turn the privacy off. So one thing to remember, if you can automate it with a control system, we can initiate that automation. So I always say your only limitation is your imagination. So you can have plenty of fun when you're designing the projects where there's a control system involved. Vigilant just isn't designed for residential applications. It's very popular in commercial applications. Some of the use cases in retail are detecting people present in a stockroom where they typically shouldn't be. We can create notifications when a truck pulls up to a loading dock, if there's somebody loitering on the loading dock, if the driver or somebody enters the warehouse from the loading dock, we can create a notification there. If the person is loitering outside of the store or outside of the building, we can create an alert there. And also we can create a notification if somebody enters the store perhaps early of a morning when the store isn't particularly busy and it's operating on skeleton staff. We can detect people entering the store and then raise awareness in the store that a customer has just arrived. All of those examples I've given you needn't necessarily be active all the time. You can activate them via a time schedule, or you can also automate them through any external event, any external source that can communicate with the camera. So what Vigilant will deliver you in a commercial project is complete flexibility as we can in a residential application. So just bear in mind that Vigilant has got many use cases, both in commercial and residential applications. What we've been asked to do numerous times is actually create scenes and events non-security related outside of the home or outside of the commercial application. And what we've been able to do in this case that we'll talk about afterwards, you can alert somebody when they enter or exit an area. We can apply direction filters to tripwires. So you can have people in an area that will create a notification if they leave. If a person enters that area, it can create a notification. And like I said before, we can have those zones that intelligence activated either on a time schedule from an external source, or you can even have that activated, turned on and off, even via like a simple switch on the wall. So when you want to activate it, you turn the switch on, and then when you don't, the switch is obviously turned off. The use case example that we're showing on the screen now is a great one. You draw a zone, a series of trip lines around the child's play area, and then if anybody enters that zone, or more importantly, if the children wander off from that zone, it can create an alert and it can raise awareness, and especially useful when that's integrated with a control system, because you can definitely raise awareness to the parents that the little one has now just wandered out of that zone that they should have been playing in.
Yeah, Adrian, I really love this particular example because it illustrates very specifically how you can create something other than a security usage for the analytics. You know, just imagine having this play area. You set that sort of intrusion zone to let people know when they coming in and out. They can activate that area at any time using like either an app on the control system's app, or like you said, a switch on the wall so that mom can kind of initiate that play zone and then turn it on and off at any time. So that's a really great example. It really shows some non-security applications and how you can truly use the analytics like a virtual sensor, because that's exactly what they are. So great stuff. So moving on, when we talk about how do we do the integration with control systems or with security systems. So just talk about that a little bit more. So Vigilant, the way Vigilant works is it has a number of different analytics. Any of those analytics can be either turned on individually or be used to trigger an event inside a control system. Of course, we support all the major control systems, and once you've created that virtual sensor, that rule can be used for anything, anything security related to trigger an alarm in the security system, to trigger a notification. But in the case of a smart home, you might want to use these virtual sensors to trigger any number of events, custom events in the system, whether this is in a home environment or in a business environment. You can use it to turn on lights in a particular sequence, create a sequenced scene as someone moves through an area, just to really create a really custom environment. And that's really what custom integrators do, is to create that sort of custom experience. And the Vigilant analytics essentially are additional tools in your tool belt with virtual sensors that are identified through the analytics and video to just do whatever you want. As Adrian said, the limitation is really your imagination. I do want to note that not all control systems can take an asynchronous IP event as what might come out of our cameras. So for those control systems, you'd have to actually run a separate alarm and use a physical alarm. That's the case with, for instance, Savant. But either way, you can use that analytic to create whatever scene you want. Now, in terms of control system integration, or excuse me, in terms of security system integration, here's where you have a couple options. So the most common example will be where you have an existing security system. Obviously, this can be inside of a home or a business. Most commonly, actually, inside a business where this is done, is it'll have an existing security system, and you want to be able to arm and disarm the system just like you would arm and disarm the security system normally. So in this case, what you can do is to use our Vigilant Control product to basically be the intermediary between the Vigilant cameras and the security system. So as you arm and disarm the security system, the Vigilant Control will take the trigger from the security system to arm and disarm the analytics. And when you're arm and disarming the analytics, you're arming and disarming the specific analytics that you're using for security. So if you had, for example, that analytic that was being used in the playground, you wouldn't arm that with your security system. You'd arm that separately. However, in the cases where you do have a control system in there, then you don't need our Vigilant Control box, because the security system is the one that's sending and receiving those commands to arm and disarm the security system. So that's your intelligence system. So regardless of whether you have a control system in the property or not, we have a solution to enable you to arm and disarm the analytics as an extension to the security system with our Vigilant cameras. Now, another thing that makes this all work is not only being able to arm and disarm the analytics, but also having those custom entry and exit delays. What that means is, just like in a typical security system where you have a doorway and somebody walks in the door and they get 30 seconds to disarm the system, that's an entry delay. And really it's holding off the alarm from going off while they enter in the appropriate code. We have to do the same thing with the Vigilant system, but since the virtual sensor that we're using in the video are extended out into the property, like for instance, maybe a double tripwire across a driveway, you need extra time to be able to come in, pull up the driveway, or enter the building and enter the code. So you need more time. So instead of 30 seconds, you might need 2 minutes or 5 minutes. We can customize that delay on a per analytic basis to make sure that the property owner has enough time to get into the property to enter the commands. And those custom entry and exit delays are critical in order to make the system work just as they are in a regular security system. Now, there's also another use case where perhaps there isn't an existing security system and you want to use Vigilant cameras standalone as the security system, meaning you have these cameras all around the property and you can create that barrier in the property, and that's your one and only security system. In that case, you don't have an existing security panel. You don't to be able to arm and disarm the system. We have products for you. So if it's a case where you have a single point of entry, you can go ahead and use our VI Control with an additional keypad that would allow you to arm and disarm the system, or the entire system all at once. So that's really there to, in a sense, create a standalone video security system entirely out of Vigilant camera. So no matter what your system you're trying to go for, we have a solution for you. One thing that we're going to be showing off, we're going to be heading to CEDIA next week, and we've produced kind of a really nice video that really shows off the Vigilant security sort of experience. We'll actually show you, I'll give you a link to that video later on, but the video really does a great job showing kind of the entire sequence from start to finish, where someone leaving the property, leaving their home, can enter in the keypad, into their security keypad to arm the system. As they drive away, the analytics kind of turn on. They can self-monitor their property as here in the upper right-hand corner, the FedEx truck is arriving with a package. They can see that package arrive, and then if, God forbid, somebody enters their property when they shouldn't and tries to maybe steal that package, you can even, with the Vigilant system, set up third-party monitoring to monitor that video and talk that person down to scare them away, or call the cops if they don't want to leave the property. So you can really do from start to finish, have that full Vigilant experience in a way that no other system can do. So I look forward to sharing that video with you later on. Anyways, so when I think about security, I think about having many different layers. You know, you kind of start with a regular burglar alarm system, and you kind of build up from there. And every layer that you add on just creates more peace of mind, creates more security for end users. Adrian, why don't you help me walk through kind of the different layers and how each one might work?
Absolutely. So obviously you're probably more than familiar with a burglar alarm. Obviously the burglar alarm creates that security barrier that, as we've said before, is the perimeter walls of the building. Simple installation allows you as the dealer to participate in the recurring revenue for that. Obviously the downsides, and this is becoming more and more apparent, that you've virtually got very limited or very slow police response. So you've got obviously very slim chance of actually catching that person, the burglar, on the scene, because the police unfortunately just assume that every burglar alarm activation is a false one. So you've got your burglar alarm, you've got your traditional surveillance that can be added to, or purely have a surveillance system. Great for watching somebody steal the car or break into the car or remove something from the property. It does give peace of mind if the burglar alarm activates, that you can check from your smartphone and see, is there really somebody there or not? But that doesn't help when it comes to, you need to get the signal from the alarm. It doesn't help with getting a faster police response, and there's no integration with the security system unless it's obviously a Vigilant system. Benefits to the end user, obviously they've got the ability to view live video. Great for a lifestyle experience, for knowing that the kids are back home from school safely. You can check in to make sure that they're there. So that's obviously your burglar alarm and your standard surveillance system. You've then now got what people are referring to as like the first level of defense when it comes to video monitoring. It's actually video verification, where the burglar alarm and the surveillance system are tied together. And that's a standard surveillance system and a standard burglar alarm system that are programmed in a way that when zone 1, which may be the front door, activates, that will send an alert to the monitoring station. And then the monitoring station also receives a clip from that camera, quite often just a snapshot, to show what actually activated that door. So they can verify who opened that door, who activated the alarm. They can then verify, is that a genuine alarm or not? The advantage to that is that you get an improved police response. The negative to it is that, yes, you get an improved police response, but the burglar is physically in the home, in the building. And again, these examples are the same whether it's residential or commercial. So they could be in the commercial building. They may be in there for 60 seconds, even 90 seconds is a long time for a burglar to actually be on property. There's no way, regardless of the level of police response that you receive to that activation, that very unlikely that the police will arrive there before that burglar has left the scene. So yes, it was verified. Yes, you had a higher level of police response, but unfortunately, you're still unlikely to catch the person than if you just got a standard surveillance system or a standard burglar alarm system.
And certainly, if they're already in the building, they've already potentially done damage to the property and caused mayhem.
That's right. So the next level of security is obviously video security that Vigilant was really designed around. What we've got the ability to do now is extend that perimeter, that detection boundary, right out to the perimeter of the property line. So we can get notifications a lot earlier. We can actually detect that person when they're on the property before they even get close to the building, before they create an activation. So it enables you, when it's self-monitored, to get that notification and hopefully do something about it. We can also, like Alex mentioned, when you integrate it to the control system or into the burglar or the security system, you can arm and disarm the cameras as if they were sensors on the burglar alarm. So just think of the cameras with a video security system as like external detectors that are continually monitoring the outside of the property. And again, as Alex mentioned earlier, we can add custom entry and exit delays. So like a burglar alarm, when you first put the code in and leave, it gives you X seconds to leave. We can do that at a custom level on individual cameras. So we can add different exit delays and entry delays on a per camera basis to give the property owner time to leave the property and also time when they get back without creating an unnecessary activation. Less important in this example because it's self-monitored. They'd typically be sending themselves an email or sending themselves a notification, and they would obviously know what had caused that, but still useful.
So Adrian, do you know of any other solutions on the market that can do this kind of thing in terms of providing the analytics to create that barrier and then integrating with the security system the way we can do with Vigilant?
There's nobody else in the market today that can integrate with the security system in the way that we do. No one else either is giving the entry and exit delays. That's a feature that at the moment is unique to Vigilant, and that's really what sets us out as the premium provider of video security, and why more and more dealers are adopting this and adding this to their portfolio on a regular basis. So the ultimate level of video security is when the video security system is professionally monitored. And the way to think about a professionally monitored video security system is like the burglar alarm. It sends an activation through to a monitoring station. You have a real human being in real time that views the images, that views the incident. And like Alex mentioned, we'll share a video with you at the end that gives a real good example of how video security, when it's professionally monitored, really works. One of the main advantages of a professional monitored system is you can optionally add audio. You can add talk down, operator talk down. So the monitoring station operator sits and receives the activation. They then review the scene, decide, yes, is this an activation or not. They can then give a talk down to deter the person that's leaving, to warn them that they've activated the system. They'll usually describe what that person is wearing so they know that it's a real person, it's not just a recorded message that's been activated. And 9 times out of 10, that person will leave before they even carry out the crime that they intended when they arrived on site. One of the other advantages with this, because of that feature, is you've got a higher probability of negotiating lower insurance costs because there's less chance. Obviously, Vigilant, as you're probably all aware, was originally started in the UK. We're just paranoid on video security, and video monitoring is very, very popular. And insurance companies now are specifying this over burglar alarms and are offering good discounts on insurance premiums because of the lower risk that they actually take on with a professionally monitored system. So the advantages that you've got as a dealer, it gives you the highest possible RMR per location. And Vigilant actually provides, because of rates that we've negotiated with our monitoring partners, because we produce and generate less false alerts, not just from our advanced algorithms that we use for the video analytics, but also the extra features that we've added, like the entry and exit delays available today. The downsides, and there's obviously a downside to everything, that this is a premium security option, and obviously it has, unfortunately, a premium price tag attached to it at the moment. One thing to bear in mind, and what a lot of dealers don't realize, is that you don't need to add video security to every camera on the system. What some dealers will do, they'll just add it to key cameras, perhaps at the front entrance, on the back porch, the one that's looking at the driveway. So they may do 1, 2, or 3 cameras on a site. They don't need to do every camera. Professional video security monitoring on every camera on the system.
So basically, when we're comparing, say, video security to a previous slide to video verification, they're very similar in the sense that both are creating video streams that can be professionally monitored to help improve kind of police response time. The real difference is the accuracy and low false positives created by the Vigilant analytics when properly set up to extend that barrier outside the walls into the property and basically allow the operator to respond to that intruder before they've entered the property and potentially prevent any additional damage. And based on what we've seen in other markets, in this case the UK, we think the insurance companies will catch on. Video monitoring prices will come down, and while this is a premium sort of application today, we see it only going down in the future and continue to become more and more mainstream. Today, I'd say most applications, the biggest application is going to be in sort of the commercial environments and very high-end residential. But that's, as the prices come down, it'll definitely become more mass market. This really is the future. So let's talk a little bit about some of the technologies involved in our sort of Vigilant system that we have today. So the way we've designed the system with Vigilant is the intelligence are in the camera. All the intelligence is in the camera. That's where the analytics are driven. So the camera is actually tracking. Previously, when tracking things like motion, it was just figuring out what percentage of pixels in a certain area are actually changing color. Now, you're starting to see more and more intelligence where you're now gathering these pixels into objects. These objects have size, they have speed as they move around the scene, and based on these parameters, we can create different rules. And we have 7 different types of algorithms that we can create rules on. We can have up to 8 rules active at any time. And the key to all this is making sure those rules are set up correctly. So as you work with your customers to design a system, every single camera is a scene, and each scene you have to decide as the integrator, what are you trying to capture? What are you trying to understand from that scene? And describe that to our virtual technicians, who will then create the appropriate rules to trigger whatever event that you want to trigger, whether it's rules that are meant for security that would trigger recordings, alarms, or triggers out to the professionally monitored operator, or whether it's an analytic that might trigger an event that might create a sequence of events in the control system to create an experience for the user, or to simply just trigger a notification when, say, FedEx pulls up the driveway and you want to see when people arrive at your property. So no matter what you're doing, you have to understand what you're trying to accomplish, describe that to our virtual tech so they can set it up. In addition to that, one very unique capability that Vigilant cameras offer is the ability for the cameras to communicate with one another. So typically what you'll have around the property is you'll have various fixed position cameras that are pointed in the same direction all the time. And you might have half a dozen or more of these cameras around the property. In addition to that, you can have a couple PTZs in key locations, and those PTZs are positioned in such a way that they can see a lot of different areas and see the areas that might be covered by many different fixed position cameras. And when that fixed position camera sees an object in a certain area, it can tell that PTZ, hey, I have something of interest going on over here. Can you come look over here? That PTZ will then move away from wherever it's looking and lock in on that object. And if it happens to be an auto tracking PTZ like our 7150, it'll then track that object as it moves around the property, regardless of whether it moves out of that initial field of view of that fixed camera. That capability is very, very unique and offers additional intelligence on top of the basic analytics. But it's not just that. We also, on our Vigilant cameras, these are really top-of-the-line cameras just all by themselves, and they include some of the best sensors available at this time, including a Starlight sensor. Now, a Starlight sensor basically enables ultra-low light viewing in color. So I love these two pictures because these are pictures that were sent to us by one of our earliest customers at Vigilant. He replaced, on the left is a PTZ that he had on that location. He had installed it a year before, and the owner didn't like the image quality that he was getting, didn't like the whole black and white thing. He replaced it with our 7650 PTZ, and voila, you see the difference between is literally night and day in terms of what you can see. Now the image is much more vibrant. It's in color. And these two images were taken at the exact same time of day, just one with the Vigilant Starlight camera. So Vigilant, again, not like any surveillance system, not only does it have the latest technologies and capabilities, but it also has all the intelligent video to really drive amazing use cases and capabilities for custom installers and people trying to do more than just your typical surveillance. Now, Adrian, tell us about some of the services that we offer with Vigilant and why they're so important to how Vigilant operates.
So we identified very early on, even before we launched to the market in the US, that a system was only as good as the way it was designed and the way the system was configured. So we launched two services. One was our system design, totally free of charge service, where we actually take either a set of site plans or the Google Earth image, and then we will overlay the camera's field of view. This does many things. One, we give you an idea of where the analytics will work. It gives you an idea of the camera's field of view, but it also becomes a very powerful sales tool when you're presenting the solution to the end user, because they then fully understand the reason why they thought they needed 4 cameras, but you've actually gone in there with the proposal for 8. You can give them a realistic idea of what that camera's field of view will be, even before they place the order and give you the deposit check. So you're managing their expectations right from the start. And we give you a complete pack with that system design. You get the site plan, the overlay. You get a separate overlay with analytic suggestions on where we believe the analytics will perform. Obviously, with all technology, especially video analytics, has limitations. So we're actually setting you up for success in both presenting to the dealer, as a dealer presenting to the end user, and being able to close that deal over some of your competitors because they believe they understand that you totally understand the solution that you're presenting to them. The main service that is really important is our virtual technician. We looked for a solution that we wanted to deliver to our dealers of how we could train our techs out in the field, your techs out in the field, sorry, to be as good as our technicians that work on our support team. And cut a long story short, we couldn't come up with a way of training every tech to be as good as our technicians. It takes at least 3 months for a new tech support engineer to be brought on board. They're trained before they understand exactly what the cameras can do, what they can't do, and how to configure them to get, yes, you can take a camera and you can configure it, but you're definitely not configuring that to get the optimal performance out of the analytics from our algorithms that are in the camera. So what we decided to do was to launch the virtual technician service, and virtual technician is included with every camera. So all you need to do is get your tech on site to install the camera, point the camera in the right direction, call into our virtual tech support team, and our virtual technicians then connect to the site and they do the configuration. The advantage as well that if you've used our design service is the virtual tech also has access to the original plans, because what we've found in the past that the sales guy works and he'll design the system, he'll work with our system design team, he'll present that to the end user. Quite often that conversation doesn't get plans and confirm that the site is configured in the way that it was originally intended. So again, that's another truck roll that you can prevent. So when the end user looks at the system and says, well, I was expecting this to be covering here, but the camera's looking there, we've actually caught that at the configuration stage. One of our dealers once described our virtual technician to me, and I thought it was a great example. He said, your virtual technician is like me having an analytics expert in every tool bag I've got out in the field. So that's the way to think of it, that your guys install it, and then they use our virtual technician tool to actually do that configuration and do that for them. So with that as well, we're improving your efficiency and also significantly increasing your margins.
Yeah, virtual technician really is the secret sauce to make that on how we make Vigilant work. Too often, I've talked to dealers who've tried analytics in the before. They consider analytics very gimmicky. It doesn't really work, and the reason why is because they're not being set up the right way. It takes a ton of time to get the experience of seeing different scenes, knowing which rules will work over time as the scene changes, depending on the directionality of headlights or season changing, where the bushes are, those things. It's really important to understand every scene requires a good understanding of what's really happening to set up properly. The other thing that's really interesting about virtual tech is, as Adrian has deployed virtual tech out in the industry to kind of solve the problem of setting up analytics correctly. One of the side benefits of virtual tech is that we don't just use virtual tech to set up the analytics. Since we're there, since we have the expertise, we'll go ahead and set up the entire system. The analytics, any network configuration, setting up of record schedules, notifications to control systems or the third party, whatever. The whole system gets set up by our team. And what that's done is, as dealers get used to this, they've essentially operationalized that into their business. And what that means is, as Adrian alluded to, we're essentially another employee in your company, and that basically increases your bandwidth. You now know that we're setting up that system, and now your technicians can go off, be working on other parts of the job, or even go off and start working to another job, and it really increases that bandwidth. So it's starting to solve another problem that we've seen in the industry, which is bandwidth constraints, not having enough of the right people to be able to do as much work as you guys are finding out there. So between setting up the analytics correctly and then operationalizing that to increase the bandwidth of your entire business, we've seen the Vigilant dealers, the successful Vigilant dealers, have really loved it and flourished as a result of it. Adrian, why don't we go ahead and take some questions? What do you think?
Sounds good.
Okay, guys. Thanks, Alex and Adrian. That was great. We have a few minutes left for some questions. Didn't have a whole lot of questions come in. Evidently, we must have answered most everyone's questions. If you do have any questions, guys, just simply type them in the question and answer pane on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll definitely get to them. If not, during the presentation, we'll always follow up with an email. So I do have a couple of questions to both of you guys. This question came in. I understand how the tracking works with the advanced PTZ, but can you explain more what the event would look like when using your newer, less expensive PTZ that doesn't support auto tracking?
Yeah, I can answer that one, Ricky. The event, the idea behind the 7650, which is the lower cost PTZ without auto track, the idea is that it's still got the camera-to-camera communication. So you can have a camera, think of it as like a remote detector. So you've got that fixed camera that's giving you the field of view, and then that camera can send the notification to the PTZ, to the 7650, and tell it to turn to look at that scene. So what that enables you to do is have the static camera with a wider field of view, and then the PTZ will turn around and zoom to give you a more detailed view in the area. Obviously the feature that you haven't got is auto track. So it would move to that position, and then it would be stationary in that position where it had been called to. And then if the camera needed, if the camera sent another command, if that person had moved and activated another zone, the PTZ could then move and look in that area as well. No. So if you've got that system that's monitored, obviously the operator has control of that PTZ as well, to either move it to additional preset positions or to move that camera around. It really depends on the application. And that 7650 is a great camera for professional video monitoring. It was designed mainly for that purpose because it has a talk-down speaker actually built into the camera, and that's rated at 100 decibels at 1 meter. And just to give you an idea, that's the same rating as a burglar alarm sounder. So that's a significant noise that's coming out, crisp and clear. On most applications, the speaker volume level is actually turned down from maximum. It really is powerful. and the speaker is totally discrete. It's actually built into the camera directly above the actual camera module, so it's totally discrete. People don't even realize that there's a speaker built into it.
Okay.
Long answer to a simple question, sorry.
That's all right. You gave a lot more information, which probably cleared up some other questions. The questions are rolling in now, so a couple of more here. What DVR systems do the Vigilant cameras work with?
So we've obviously got our own line of NVRs, network video recorders, that obviously are fully compliant. The cameras are ONVIF, also they comply to the ONVIF standard, so you can connect them to pretty much any ONVIF compliant NVR that's out there in the market today. The only limitation you've got with using a third-party NVR with ONVIF is the analytics are only supported on ours. We don't send what we call metadata to the third-party NVRs at the moment, that they can't support that. That will obviously change and improve over time as the ONVIF standard is developed. But at the moment, for the full analytic experience with logging the incidents and playing back based on analytic events, that needs to be a Vigilant NVR.
Okay.
Yeah, one more thing I'd like to add to that is when we acquired Vigilant last year, obviously it was separate from our existing surveillance system, and obviously, as we described today, Luma is kind of a traditional surveillance system, and Vigilant really is the next level of surveillance and video security. But over time, we do want to start to merge the lines. So what you'll start to see next year is that Vigilant cameras will be fully integrated into the Luma system as well. So you'll be able to use Vigilant cameras with Luma NVRs, including the triggers for the analytics. Thanks.
Okay. Here's one, I think Alex would be best to answer this one. How does the invisible tripwire technology differ from motion sensing and other basic cameras, or even in SnapAV's Luma cameras?
Sure, no problem. So when you go back to basic motion detection, it really is just taking an area, whatever area is marked, and it counts the number of pixels that are changing at any given time. And once it exceeds a certain percentage, and that percentage is typically in a 1 to 10 scale, once it hits a certain percentage, then it'll trigger a motion. Now, those pixels might not be related. One can be over there, one can be over there. The point is it's a certain percentage of pixels. With the Vigilant analytics that are in Vigilant, now you're actually tracking these pixels and clustering them into objects, and these objects can now start to create various shapes, sizes, and have certain mass. And as that object moves throughout the scene, you can actually start to capture speed information as well. So it's the difference between tracking kind of pixels that may or may not be related versus tracking objects and now creating rules around those objects. Now the Luma IP cameras, the latest Luma IP cameras, start to have what we call smart motion, but really those are very entry-level analytics. And the entry-level analytics also starts to capture objects, and you can start to do things around those objects like creating an intrusion box to see when something goes into that area, an object goes into that area, or we also have a tripwire in Luma as well. The difference is between entry-level analytics like what's in Luma and Vigilant is that you're able in Vigilant you're able to track the size of the object and actually filter out objects that are either too small or too big. So the Vigilant technicians are when they're creating these rules, they're also Vigilant has 7, and that can create customization that's not possible with Luma, on top of the ability to track size and speed. So that's really the difference between sort of historical motion triggers versus basic analytics that you're going to see in a lot of the quote-unquote smarter cameras in the market, versus really high-end analytics system around Vigilant. The challenge with Vigilant, though, again, is the complexity of setting up those rules and knowing which rule to use, how to set it up, how the area needs to be positioned relative to the overall scene, those kinds of things. And that's why Virtual Technician is so important. It's really easy to understand the individual algorithms, it's a whole different ball game to be able to actually apply those rules on any given scene very well and provide a great experience to the end user. And that's, again, why virtual technician is so important.
Alrighty. And as a follow-up to that, guys, the virtual technician service is included in the cost of the camera, so there's no additional charge for that. Just want to make sure everyone understood that. All right, we have time for just a couple more questions. Either one of you guys could take this one. Do you have speakers built into any other cameras besides the 7650 and microphones built in as well?
The answer to, if I break that down into two, the answer to any other cameras with speakers is no. The speaker is only in the 7650. That will be added to the next generation PTZ that will replace the 7150 sometime next year. So it is something that we are starting to adopt on more cameras, but it's only on the 7650 at the moment. With the exception of the 1350 and the 1450, the entry-level cameras, all of the other cameras have microphone inputs. The 4350 and the 4340, which are the larger domes with the varifocal motorized lens, they both have microphones built into the camera. So they do have microphones built in, but no speaker.
All righty. Oh, what about the 1250, Adrian?
And the 1250, Ricky, sorry. That also has a speaker. That also has a microphone built in as well.
That's all right. I just happened to be looking at one sitting on my desk. That's what reminded me. All right, guys, I've got time for one more question here. And again, either one of you guys could take this. Where can we find documentation to disable and enable analytics or turn on and off video streams in a Control4 system? And they might be talking about an API document, but maybe specifically on the Control4 drivers.
So on the Control4 driver, that is documented. Documentation is actually built into the Control4 driver. I think it's just common feature for all good Control4 drivers to have the documentation built in. The API commands, the actual raw commands that you can send to the camera, are actually on the support tab of each of the camera pages on the website. So there's two ways you can get that information, either directly from the Control4, you've got that integration built in, so you've got the documentation in the driver, and if you want to actually see the raw commands and structure your own commands, that's fully detailed in the API document on the support tab.
And feel free to utilize the virtual technician to get that set up as well. They'll help you walk through that setup, so and provide you any information you need to get that going in your system.
All righty, let me, we made a promise about giving a link to a video, so stand by with me one sec, guys. I'm copying it, I'm gonna paste it into the chat window. Let's see if we can do this. I may do it in the question and answer pane. I can't do it that way. Let's do it this way.
So guys, this video is really, we're going to be, I guess, premiering this video at CEDIA. It'll be playing at our booth in the surveillance section of our booth. It's a really great video to show off the full visual experience, soup to nuts. And feel free to share this with any of your customers if they want to understand the visual experience as well. It doesn't show everything that the Vigilant system is capable of, but really gives you a nice cross-section of capabilities and kind of walks you through what's actually happening. So look forward to having you guys take a look at it, and feel free to send us comments about it.
All right, guys, that is all we have time for today. I put it in the question window. Let's see if I can get it in the chat window as well. Let's see, chat, here we go. Paste, send to the title audience. Okay, in the chat window is also that link to that video that Alex just mentioned. So you have two locations you can look for it. And again, we're going to be showing that video at CEDIA. And if you'd like to see it later on, I'm sure they're going to be plastering it all over the website too. So you'll have plenty of times to take a look at it, but we did want you guys to get a sneak peek at it because you joined us today for this webinar. Again, that's really all the time we have for today, for today's webinar. Please look for our follow-up email. It will include a coupon code for an offer that we mentioned in the invite letter. And we'll also have a link to today's recording the session today. A few of you guys had some audio lockups and things. I apologize for that. A lot of times it has to do with bandwidth, either on our end or your end, but no one else seemed to have as many audio lockups as a few of you guys, so I have to think it's more on your end. But we did record it, so feel free to review the recording at any time once you get that link. Also, please take just a moment to fill out the brief survey, and when you exit the webinar, and let us know what you thought of today's presentation and what other webinar topics you're interested in. On behalf of Vigilant, I want to thank you, Alex and Adrian as well, for taking the time to join us, and have a great and happy installing. Great day and happy installing. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.